Welcome to my channel. In my channel, you can watch various type of fiction and fantasy audiobook. If you want more video like this, please subscribe my channel.
High School DxD, 3 Years of Cohabitation. Part 3. More importantly, after devouring the power of the fallen god, his holy power became purer, and its quality improved by a significant margin. The essence of the God of holy light is the source of holy power, and also the most fundamental core of divine power. Absorbing the energy left behind by him to improve the purity and quality of the holy power is not strange at all. As long as I slowly adapt to the illusions brought about by this power, I can easily make its power my own. A flash of burning intensity flickered in Luo Yu's eyes. The existence of the source dragon soul was equivalent to giving him an extra layer of insurance. He continued to devour greedily. Streams of holy light constantly surged into his mouth, and the luster of the jade beneath his feet dimmed bit by bit, no longer as bright as before. Ddraig opened his mouth to say something, but seeing Luo Yu's confident demeanor, it was clear he knew what he was doing. This time, the energy Luo Yu devoured was a full double of the previous amount. In Ddraig's view, he was being a bit too hasty. Illusions layered upon each other again, more realistic than before. The hymns chanted by believers rang in his ears, that sound carrying an eerie power, as if trying to hook away one's soul. Having devoured so much power this time, Luo Yu had naturally anticipated this. Break for me. The entire illusion trembled violently, as if something was crashing against it from the outside. The force of the impact grew increasingly fierce. Crack, crack, crack. Before long, a large hole was smashed into the top of the illusion. Boom. A holy light dragon, fully 100 zhong long, savagely charged into the illusion. It seemed to have no consciousness, knowing only how to destroy, roar, and howl crazily. Immediately after, its body began to expand continuously. Rumble. After a loud explosion, the entire illusion completely collapsed under the crushing weight of the holy light dragon. Hiss. Buddy, you really have the heart to do that. Ddraig only just realized what Luo Yu had done. He had actually cut off a small piece of the source dragon soul the moment he fell into the illusion, and filled it with pure, instinctive bestiality. In this way, that part of the dragon soul would not be affected by the illusion at all, and instead, using that wild energy, it directly shattered the entire illusion. The source dragon soul naturally possesses the property of immortality, wouldn't it be a pity not to make good use of it? Losing such a small piece in exchange for an increase in strength is worth it. Luo Yu's face was somewhat pale, but the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. Besides, I didn't cut into the foundation. With the recovery speed of the source dragon's soul, it can grow back in a day. Ddraig sighed inwardly. This was not just a simple matter of a day or two. Cutting the source dragon's soul, and then completely destroying that piece of dragon's soul, was practically like experiencing a death. Luo Yu continued to absorb the energy within the jade. The method he used was very rough. Every time, he forced his way through the illusion. After tossing and turning several times, the energy in the jade was completely drained by him, turning into a cloud of powder that dissipated in the air. Throughout the day, he had cut off 6 small pieces of the source dragon's soul. This had already reached his limit of tolerance. If he continued, he was afraid he would damage his foundation, which would not be worth the gain. Divine power surged within Luo Yu's body. He felt it for a long while before nodding with satisfaction. Not bad, the holy power has increased by nearly 70%, and the quality has risen by about 30%. He knew clearly in his heart that to truly awaken the Aurora Juggernaut drive form, the key lay in this qualitative change of the holy power. Just as he intended to leave this ancient battlefield, Luo Yu's gaze suddenly turned cold. A cold light flashed in his dragon eyes. He stared at a certain position to the front right, his voice icy. Hiding for so long, still not planning to show yourself. The surroundings were silent for a few seconds, with only the wind whistling past. No one responded. Luo Yu coldly snorted. Since you want to court death, then don't come out. He spread his wings violently and soared into the high sky. A holy dragon breath spewed from his mouth, turning into a thick pillar of light, smashing fiercely toward the ground. With a loud rumble, the surrounding earth trembled violently, and a 10-mile radius was completely enveloped by the dragon breath. The holy power turned into a torrent of destruction, erupting crazily. Break for me. A roar suddenly erupted from the center of the dragon breath. A golden figure rushed out from the explosion range, ripping with both hands violently. Luo Yu's dragon breath was actually torn in half by this person. Tearing apart dragon breath with bare hands, this level of strength was already not inferior to a true dragon. Red Dragon Emperor, come and fight me. A young man wearing golden armor stomped the ground to pieces with a fierce kick. Borrowing this explosive force, his whole body shot into the sky like a cannonball, lunging straight at Luo Yu. He was around the same age as Luo Yu, his entire suit of armor shining brightly. Luo Yu recognized him after just a glance. Subspecies Balance Breaker. Regulus Nemea. The corners of his mouth hooked up. No wonder you could block my dragon breath. That thing can naturally make the holder immune to long-range magic attacks. If he remembered correctly, the original owner of Regulus Nemea was Saroorg Bale. This guy had extremely low magic power. As the eldest young master of the Bale family, he actually hadn't inherited the power of destruction. But his physical strength directly crushed all pure-blooded devils. The head of the new generation of 4 kings of the underworld. He relied entirely on brute force to tame Regulus Nemea, and used only 7 pawn pieces to convert this sacred gear into a servant. The host of this generation of Regulus Nemea was indeed the most special one. Luo Yu shook his head, his face full of disdain. With just this bit of ability, you want to hurt me? He turned violently and whipped out his dragon tail. The air was whipped into a cracking sound, smashing fiercely toward Saroorg Bale. Bang! With a dull, loud thud, the entire sky trembled. Saroorg Bale gathered his strength and threw a punch, his fist wrapped in the augmentation of Regulus Nemea, but it only left a shallow mark on the scales. Let alone breaking the defense, he didn't even knock off a single scale. His internal organs were violently shaken, a metallic taste welled up in his throat, which he forcibly swallowed back down. Immediately after, he frantically swung his fists again, a dense barrage of fist shadows smashing toward Luo Yu. Punch after punch, all landing on flesh. But when it came down to it, he had only just touched the threshold of an ultimate class devil, and even if he relied on his balance breaker to step into the Mao class, compared to Luo Yu, he was lacking by more than just a little. Ordinary Mao class powerhouses might not even be able to hurt this dragon species, let alone him. After a fierce barrage, Luo Yu's defense remained unmoved. That's enough. Luo Yu's massive body, over 30 zhong long, suddenly erupted with holy power, directly blasting Saroorg Bale away. Oh no! Saroorg Bale's heart tightened. Before he could adjust his posture, Luo Yu's huge figure had already pressed before him, icy killing intent shining through his dragon pupils. The dragon claws were raised high, the 5 sharp talons like 5 blades tearing through the void, a cold light flashing. The armor on Saroorg Bale's chest, formed by Regulus Nemea, shattered on the spot, and 5 bloodstains deep enough to see bone lay across his chest, almost splitting him in 2. Blood gushed out, and his body smashed heavily onto the ground. Fortunately, the place where the two fought was not far from the White Jade Holy Mountain, otherwise, just this fresh scent of blood would have attracted all the monsters in the ancient battlefield. Cough, cough, cough. Saroorg Bale lay on the ground, blood continuously spitting from his mouth, but a trace of fighting spirit rose on his face, and he grinned. As expected, I am a grade lower, a level lower than you monsters. This is what makes it interesting. Just like how he was the head of the new generation of 4 kings of the underworld, one level higher than the other 3, being the first to step into the ultimate class devil. And as for those 4 monsters known as the 4 Great Emperors, the Red Dragon Emperor had already reached the Mao class, and the other 3 were likely about the same. This was just their own power, not counting how deeply they had developed their sacred gears. The reason the 3 realms called them the 4 Great Emperors was more because they had played their sacred gears to the extreme. What you should be thinking about now is not this. Bang! Luo Yu descended from the high sky, his dragon claws becoming an indestructible cage, fiercely pressing Saroorg Bale, who wanted to crawl up, to the ground, making him unable to even move. Saroorg Bale was already severely injured, and this blow caused him to spit out several more mouthfuls of blood. He panted heavily, speaking with difficulty. Cough. Red Dragon Emperor, I really didn't intend to be your enemy, I was just itching for a fight. You made a move on me. Luo Yu's voice was as cold as ice shards, and his dragon claws slowly tightened. Before, there was a guy who also made a move on me. He didn't have any malice either, but the outcome was the same. He paused. The weak should have self-awareness. Provoking the strong casually will not end well. The force of the dragon claws grew greater and greater, as if intending to grind this ignorant thing directly into meat paste. On the ancient battlefield, there would soon be one more puddle of blood. Wait. Saraward Bale's face turned deathly pale. He could clearly feel that in the Red Dragon Emperor's cold vertical pupils, the killing intent was real. This guy wasn't trying to scare people, he really wanted to kill him. I was sent by Lord Beelzebub, I really have no malice. Beelzebub. Luo Yu's movements paused, and the force of his claws loosened by a few points. This name was a bit interesting. In the underworld, besides Sears X Lucifer, the second super devil, Ajuka Beelzebub. That madman who created the devil reincarnation technology. How did he know I was in the ancient battlefield? Luo Yu was more curious about this. The matter of you conducting dragon reincarnation has already spread in the heaven, and the species you transformed into naturally cannot be hidden. Saraward Bale hurriedly explained, fearing that if he spoke too slowly, he would be patted into a meat pie. The holy light dragon needs a high concentration light element cultivation environment. The places in the three realms that meet the conditions can be counted on one hand. When he said this, Luo Yu already understood what was going on. Before, he traveled everywhere, and no one could grasp his whereabouts, plus, he was careful enough, so no one could pinpoint where he was. But this time it was different. The cultivation location he chose exposed his needs. The holy light dragon needs places with high light elements, and such places in the three realms are few in total. Except for heaven, the rest are just those few places. The ancient battlefield of the underworld is one. As long as one squats here, one can always wait for him to appear. As for that branch of the mirror lake of light in the underworld, I'm afraid it has long been surrounded by cadres of the fallen angels, just waiting for him to deliver himself to the door. Your mouse sending you to ambush me, isn't that looking down on me too much? Luo Yu's tone carried sarcasm. Red Dragon Emperor, you joke, His Majesty sent me to help you four great emperors complete the god fall. Saraward Bale hurriedly stated the main business. Luo Yu retracted his dragon claws. If he pressed any further, this guy would really be crushed to death alive. He looked down at Saraward Bale, a playful smile hanging on the corners of his mouth. With your level, you come to be cannon fodder. Saraward Bale grimaced in pain, but still braced himself to speak. Not quite, helping you block the attacks of the god of the underworld is not a big problem. God fall. That was the plan he was leading, to cut down Hades, god of the underworld. It was too normal for people to know about this. Among the four of them, two were undercover. It was just that the underworld side dragged it out until the last moment before receiving word. The news had leaked from Valley's side. Back then, to snatch the coordinates, Luo Yu had directly charged into the Bale clan and cut down their successor, who was also Valley's brother, with a single slash. If the underworld investigated along this line, it would only take a bit of effort to lock onto him. After all, the underworld was one of the three factions, its influence was right there, so who would dare look down on it? Saraward Bale coming over in person this time was, to put it plainly, the underworld showing its stance. Hades, this god of the underworld, was a thorn in the side of too many devils, and would have to be pulled out sooner or later. But Luo Yu didn't care. With the help of these factions, the matter of god fall would actually be much easier to handle. I will notify you when the time comes. Luo Yu casually tossed a piece of jade condensed from holy power to Saraward Bale as a means of contact. Then, spreading his wings, he vanished directly into the sky above the ancient battlefield. Kuo Town. 2 streets away from the villa where Luo Yu lived, there was also an extremely large mansion that looked like a private estate. The decoration styles were completely different. Luo Yu's place was minimalist Japanese, while this place followed the style of Northern European nobility, magnificent and heavy. The owner of this villa was Rias Grimory, the successor of the Grimory clan. At this very moment, the atmosphere throughout the entire villa was incredibly oppressive. The devil maids walked on their tiptoes, not even daring to breathe too loudly. They had heard in private that the eldest young lady's peerage member had been killed by a holy sword user of special status. Over the past few days, Rias Grimoire had locked herself in her room. Even when Miss Sona came over, she was turned away several times. Butler Yu, does Rias still refuse to open the door? The room door was tightly shut. Standing outside the door was an elderly devil butler, about the same age as Butler Izumi, and his strength had also reached the level of an ultimate class devil. His mission was also the same, by order of the Grimoire clan, to closely protect this successor. Sigh. Miss Akano, you're here. Butler Yu shook his head helplessly as he saw Akano Himehima walking over. Let me try. I'll leave it to you, Miss Akano. Butler Yu bowed and stepped back. Knock, knock, knock. Rias. It's me, Akano. Akano Himehima called out several times at the door, but there was no response from inside the room, which was so quiet that it seemed as if no one was there at all. She narrowed her eyes. Seeing that the person inside was determined to turn a deaf ear, she stopped wasting her breath. Flipping her palm, crackling lightning emerged. The lock and the doorknob were melted together by the electric current. With a creak. Without waiting for the consent of the person inside, Akano Himehima pushed the door open and walked in. The room was pitch black, and the curtains were drawn tightly. Rias Grimoire was sitting blankly on the bed in her pajamas, her hair in a mess. In her hand, she was clutching an evil piece, the knight. Rias. Akano Himehima walked up to her. Some things were hard to say directly, but she had to say them. She hesitated for a moment and spoke. Yuto is no longer here, that is a fact. Locking yourself in your room won't do any good. Perhaps. Rias Grimoire smiled bitterly. She held up the piece and said, just now, Father handed the knight piece back to me, telling me to fill Yuto's vacancy. Father didn't say much else, but I understand his meaning. The Grimoire clan won't stand up for a deceased peerage member, let alone fall out with the Citri clan over this. After all, Luo Yu is now the Citri clan's actual son-in-law, not just in name like before. In Yuto's matter, the entire clan isn't standing on my side, not even brother. Rias Grimoire paused, staring into Akano Himehima's eyes as she said, I'm afraid that if I really start a fight with Luo Yu, you won't stand on my side either, will you? Akano Himehima didn't speak. But the look in her eyes already made the answer very clear. Yes. If Rias Grimoire really did something to harm Luo Yu, she would make a move against Rias Grimoire, no matter how reluctant she was. In her heart, Luo Yu's weight was far heavier than Rias Grimoire's. Clearly, it was that fool, that beast. He killed Yuto, Rias Grimoire's, peerage member. Rias Grimoire gritted her teeth, her voice trembling. In the end, can I not even demand justice for his death? Akano Himehima still didn't speak. She had heard the whole story from Rias Grimoire a few days ago. She didn't want to say much about whether Luo Yu had gone too far in killing Kiba Yuto. But there was one thing that absolutely could not be forgiven. Kiba Yuto actually dared to make a move against Luo Yu. This touched her bottom line. The room fell silent once again. The two women each had their own thoughts. But they had one thing in common. They were both thinking of the same person. Luo Yu. Tsubaki, is he really here? Big Sister Rhea, there's no mistake. I asked many people based on the portrait you drew, the Lord Exorcist lives in this villa. Tsubaki Shinra pulled Rhea Kusaka's hand, excitedly pointing at the villa in front of them as she spoke. Ever since Luo Yu rescued her from the fallen angels in the church, her yearning for the profession of an exorcist had become completely uncontrollable. Over the past few days, she had been dragging Rhea Kusaka all over Kuo town to search for Luo Yu's whereabouts. Just to become his apprentice. Since the incident at the church, Rhea Kusaka had become even more terrified of monsters and ghosts. From the bottom of her heart, she didn't want to have anything to do with those things ever again. Yet, when Tsubaki Shinra asked her for help in finding the exorcist, she had agreed in a moment of impulse. Young ladies, is there something I can help you with? Butler Izumi had long noticed the two girls at the villa's entrance, they had been wandering around there for quite a while. Tsubaki Shinra called out sweetly, hello, Grandpa. We're here to find the Lord Exorcist. An exorcist? Butler Izumi was stunned, looking at the human girls in front of him with a strange expression. Coming to a place where devils live to find an exorcist. In all his years of living, this was the first time he had encountered such a thing. Besides, those living in this villa were all devils. Where would an exorcist come from? Butler Izumi was just about to refuse and ask them to leave, when he suddenly thought of something. Wait. Their family's son-in-law was a holy sword user, which strictly speaking could be considered a type of exorcist. Could these two human girls be here to find the son-in-law? Grandpa, it's this person in the drawing. Tsubaki Shinra pulled out a portrait. Butler Izumi took a look and saw that it was indeed the son-in-law. So you are looking for our son-in-law. Please follow me, you two. Butler Izumi made a welcoming gesture and led the two girls into the villa. Son-in-law. Both girls following behind were stunned. The young man in the drawing is our second young lady's fiancé. Seeing their confusion, Butler Izumi explained casually. Tsubaki Shinra didn't react much. However, Ryakusaka's eyes dimmed slightly. After a short while, Butler Izumi brought them to the villa's main hall. Second young lady, these two young ladies are here to find the son-in-law. Hello, my name is Sona Shitori. May I ask who you are? Sona was Luo Yu's fiancé. Seeing human girls coming specifically to find him, she naturally had to ask about the situation. We are here to ask the Lord Exorcist to take us as apprentices. Tsubaki Shinra wasn't shy at all, warmly calling out, "Hello, master's wife." Sona was completely stunned. She had absolutely no idea what was going on, yet she had suddenly become the master's wife to these two girls who weren't much younger than herself. Tsubaki. Ryakusaka, who was standing beside her, quickly pulled back Tsubaki Shinra, who still wanted to keep talking. She sensibly explained the whole story to Sona, telling her everything that had happened at the church. After listening to Ryakusaka's explanation, Sona finally understood. That day, she and Butler Izumi had arrived late, only catching Luo Yu slaying Rias Grimori's peerage member, Kiba Yuto. She had no idea about the matter regarding these two girls prior to that. In the main hall, Sona had a maid bring some tea and said to Butler Izumi, "Go check if Luo Yu is in his room." Ever since she found out that Luo Yu was a holy sword user, Sona had vaguely realized, this kid was not a shut-in who stayed in his room all day. What was left inside was likely a clever illusion. Yes, miss. Butler Izumi turned and went upstairs. Inside the room, Luo Yu had just stepped out of a spatial rift, his face slightly pale. This was the third time he had returned from the ancient battlefield to cultivate. The results were actually not bad. The quantity of his holy light had more than tripled, and its quality had been raised by a whole fold. His current strength had already touched the edge of the peak of the early Mao class. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before he surged to the mid-Mao class. More importantly, the purity of his holy light had increased. What originally required 1 unit of power to achieve an effect now only required half, as 1 unit could do the work of 2. The increase in combat power was simply absurd. Although he was only at the peak of early Mao class, he wouldn't feel any trepidation at all when facing an opponent of mid-Mao class. Calculating at this speed, the 3 years I previously set to reach Super Devil probably won't even take a single year. Luo Yu was making beautiful plans in his mind. Besides, the God Fall plan was getting closer and closer. The stronger his power, the more confident he would be. If he failed to slaughter Hades, god of the underworld, this time to create a spectacle that shook the 3 realms and obtain what he wanted, then he would have to withstand the full-force retaliation of 2 super devils from the Greek pantheon. At that time, there would truly be no escape. This matter still needs to be polished further, and the Aurora Juggernaut drive form must also be accelerated. Luo Yu pinched his chin as he pondered. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking at the door interrupted his train of thought. Son-in-law, 2 young ladies have arrived in the main hall downstairs. They say you saved them at the church, and they want to become your apprentices. Luo Yu pulled open the door. Listening to Butler Izumi's words, he had a bewildered look on his face. Become apprentices. They came all this way just to become my apprentices. His mind was full of question marks right now. What kind of situation was this? Yes, one of the young ladies said, we're here to find the Lord Exorcist to take us as apprentices. Those were her exact words. As Butler Izumi spoke, he couldn't help but chuckle. Luo Yu's expression also became exactly like Butler Izumi's earlier, incredibly strange. What kind of joke was this? Two little girls ran over to find an exorcist to apprentice under. Only to plunge straight into a devil's nest. Speaking of which, they had also stumbled into the fallen angel's territory by mistake before. Looking at it this way, even if they didn't become Sona's peerage members in the future, things probably wouldn't quiet down around them. Alright, since they've already come to the door, it wouldn't be right not to see them. Luo Yu stood up and followed Butler Izumi to the living room. So there really are so many hidden things in the world. Master's wife, you're so amazing. Are you an exorcist too? Tsubaki Shinra sat on the sofa, her eyes sparkling. Sona had just briefly explained the supernatural side of this world to them. The two little girls listened in absolute daze. You could say that. Sona smiled. She didn't mind sharing a bit more common knowledge with the lively and cute little girls. Tsubaki Shinra wanted to continue asking. Suddenly, she saw Luo Yu coming downstairs. She immediately jumped up and waved her hand vigorously. A trace of joy also flashed across Rei Kusaka's face. Master, you've finally come down. Tsubaki Shinra trotted up to Luo Yu, directly calling him master. Luo Yu felt a bit helpless. Oh right, master, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Tsubaki Shinra, you can just call me Tsubaki. This is my best friend, Rei Kusaka. Tsubaki Shinra pulled Rei Kusaka along and chattered away. Hello, thank you for saving us last time. Rei Kusaka blushed, her voice as quiet as a mosquito's buzz. By the way, master, what's your name? Luo Yu. I never agreed to take you on as disciples. Luo Yu reminded them. That's not true. Just now, mistress agreed on master's behalf. Tsubaki Shinra retorted defiantly. Having finally run into a real exorcist, she wasn't about to let go. Luo Yu cast a surprised glance at Sona. Sona smiled and nodded. He understood immediately. She saw potential in these two girls and wanted to groom them into her peerage member. She was just using his name to keep them here. These two future peerage members had entered the game early because of Luo Yu's appearance. Alright, let's do as Sona says. Since it was just going with the flow, Luo Yu saw no reason to stop it. Awesome. Rhea. Tsubaki Shinra hugged Rei Kusaka, jumping up and down. Sona had the maid clean up 2 rooms on the second floor for them to stay in. The room on the far left was reserved for Tsubaki Shinra. Both Tsubaki Shinra and Rei Kusaka felt a bit embarrassed. But Sona insisted and persuaded them. The two girls promised to go home, inform their families, and move in a few days later. In the garden courtyard, 2 people stood before Luo Yu. One was Tsubaki Shinra, her face full of excitement and her eyes shining. The other was Rei Kusaka, slightly reserved, with a faint blush on her cheeks. Since he had already agreed to this, whether he was just going with the flow or acting as a nominal master, teaching them a few things while he had free time wouldn't take much effort. Besides, judging by human standards, these 2 girls had pretty decent talent. However, learning real skills wasn't something that could be done overnight. Sona's original plan was just to let them get some exposure first, so that if they were reincarnated as devils in the future, they could put these skills to immediate use. Tsubaki. Present, master. Tsubaki Shinra immediately straightened her posture, her expression turning serious in an instant. Seeing her reaction, Luo Yu's mind flashed back to the military training roll calls from his school days in his past life. No need to be so nervous, it's not that serious. He glanced at the long sword hanging at Tsubaki Shinra's waist. Last time at the church, she had also brought a sword, and that one carried a bit of exorcism power, whereas this one was just a regular piece of iron. I see you like using a long sword, so I'll teach you physical techniques first as an introduction. Yes, master. Luo Yu began to demonstrate, move by move. Punches must be fast, and sword swings must be fierce. Deflect and counter, clean and decisive, carrying a sharp, murderous intent. Every move and every stance was a lethal strike. Tsubaki Shinra stood by and watched. Just staring made her feel breathless, her heart pounding as if an invisible hand were choking her neck. Upstairs, Sona and Butler Izumi stood by the window, a trace of shock flashing in their eyes. This was by no means flashy, useless martial arts. Every move aimed for vital points with absolutely no wasted motion. The sole purpose of it all was to eliminate the opponent. Butler Izumi was a survivor of the Great War, so he understood this better than anyone. This set of movements couldn't be considered a complete martial arts system. It was more like an instinct carved into the bones. Generating power, redirecting force, dispersing impact, exploding, all the techniques were integrated into those fierce moves, allowing one to double their power and strike with the fastest speed. To develop such an instinct, how long must one have been honed on the edge of life and death? Butler Izumi knew the answer all too well. Luo Yu paid no attention to the two gazes from upstairs. After making Tsubaki Shinra memorize a few lethal moves, he sent her to practice on her own, also setting a rule that she shouldn't train for too long. Human bodies were still too fragile, overtraining could easily damage her foundation. At this moment, Luo Yu's gaze fell upon Raya Kusaka. The young girl was still a bit shy, but Luo Yu's expression grew much more serious. Raya, your talent for arcane magic is quite good. Arcane magic. Raya Kusaka blinked, clearly not understanding the meaning of the term. To put it simply, it's drawing runes. Luo Yu paused and added, those runes can connect with the world itself, tapping into the corresponding rules to unleash supernatural power. Raya Kusaka's eyes widened as she watched a basketball-sized flame rise from Luo Yu's palm, its orange-red glow lighting up the entire room. This is arcane magic. Luo Yu bounced the fireball in his hand and said casually, if you were born in the territory of the Norse pantheon, with your talent, that old fellow Odin would probably recruit you into the Valkyrie unit, having you wear armor and ride a Pegasus. Odin. Raya Kusaka was stunned and blurted out, Master, isn't he the god king in Norse mythology? Aren't those just made-up stories? She was certainly familiar with the name Odin, who hadn't heard a few Norse myths as a child. Luo Yu smiled, waved his hand casually, and extinguished the fireball. You've already seen devils, angels, fallen angels, and yokai with your own eyes, and you still think gods are fake. Seeing that Raya Kusaka remained silent, he continued, most of those myths and legends you think of actually exist. It's just that those pantheons and gods live above the clouds, governing the affairs of the three realms. Raya Kusaka stood frozen in place. It felt as if something had exploded in her mind with a loud bang. Gods are real and alive. Those myths she heard as stories when she was a child were all true. It took her a long time to recover before she lowered her head and said in a muffled voice, Master, I'm sorry, my reaction just now was too dramatic. Luo Yu waved his hand. It's normal. Anyone would be dazed hearing it for the first time. With that, he began to explain the basic theory of arcane magic to Raya Kusaka. Arcane magic, in the end, is built upon the accumulation of knowledge. Without a solid foundation of knowledge, no matter how good your talent is, it's useless, you won't be able to delve into the depths of arcane magic at all. Fortunately, back then he had pocketed a few basic books from the Norse pantheon and hadn't thrown them away. Now, he dug them out, picked a few entry-level ones, and handed them to Raya Kusaka. Time flew by, and the opening day of Kuo Academy drew closer by the day. Ever since he nominally took Tsubaki Shinra and Raya Kusaka as disciples, everything had been calm and peaceful without any trouble. The two girls also moved directly into the villa. At first, their families adamantly refused, but in the end, Sona personally made a trip to convince the parents. To put it bluntly, calling it convincing was just using magic to perform a bit of psychological suggestion. Luo Yu, on the other hand, became even more idle than before. During this period, he traveled back and forth between the human world and the underworld's ancient battlefield from time to time, going there to cultivate 3 more times. With good luck, he finally broke through from the peak of the early Mao class to the mid-Mao class. However, once he entered the mid-Mao class, the growth rate of his strength slowed down significantly. Luo Yu wasn't surprised. The gap between the mid and early Mao class seemed to be just a small sub-stage, but the actual difference was larger than that between a low-class devil and an ultimate class devil. At the Mao level, with each small sub-stage breakthrough, the difficulty multiplied dozens of times. In the garden, Tsubaki Shinra was practicing her basic physical techniques. This wasn't something that could be mastered in a day or two, it had to be honed slowly. Beside her, Luo Yu was guiding Raya Kusaka in cultivating arcane magic. He had just returned from the ancient battlefield yesterday, so today was a rest period. The damaged parts of his dragon soul required time to heal. Since he had nothing else to do, he might as well give some pointers to these two girls. Usually, guiding them was Sona's job, since in Sona's heart, they were already candidate peerage members. Why is that lazy cat here? Luo Yu suddenly paused, muttering to himself as he stared in a certain direction. A familiar aura entered his perception range. What's wrong, master? Raya Kusaka looked puzzled. An acquaintance is here. You practice on your own first. Okay, master. A trace of disappointment flashed in Raya Kusaka's eyes, which she didn't let Luo Yu notice. Luo Yu raised his hand to draw an arcane magic rune in the air, and a spatial gate slowly manifested. He stepped inside, completely disappearing into the gate. Tsubaki Shinra watched from the side, her eyes shining with excitement. She thought to herself, when would she be able to come and go as she pleased like master? In the suburban forest, Kuroka lay lazily on a thick tree branch, yawning. She kept mumbling, meow, meow, so slow. She turned her head to look in a certain direction, a complex light flashing in her eyes. Sharon is also in this town. Should I go see her? Before she could finish her thought, a spatial gate suddenly appeared beneath the large tree, and Luo Yu stepped out. Meow, meow, the scent of a dragon is really strong. Kuroka jumped down from the tree and licked her lips. She drew close to Luo Yu, her little nose greedily sniffing the scent on him, her eyes obsessed. Luo Yu, are you interested in making a strong dragon cub with me? If you only came to say such useless things, you can leave. Luo Yu cast a flat glance at her. Kuroka pouted, her tone carrying dissatisfaction. You really haven't changed at all. You're just like Valley, spending all day cultivating to get stronger, with nothing else in your head. Kuroka passed a message to him. Valley asked me to tell you that the final location has been found, so don't make any noise lately. The one, making a commotion, is him, isn't it? He caused a scene in the Bale clan, and the underworld has already grown suspicious, tracing the clues to our God Falling project, Luo Yu said flatly. Luo Yu said flatly. Kuroka hurriedly waved her hands to distance herself. I wouldn't know about that. Valley never discusses things with anyone when he acts, he carries it all himself. Luo Yu squinted at her. Anything else? That look was clearly driving her away. This gluttonous and lazy cat yokai was never one to stay out of trouble. Actually, yes, Luo Yu, let's have a baby together. Luo Yu ignored her and turned to leave. Hey, don't leave, Luo Yu. Wait for me. In the villa's garden, Sona looked at the woman beside Luo Yu, her face filled with confusion. Luo Yu, who is this? The Kuroka before them looked like a completely different person. Her revealing black kimono had been replaced with a black dress, and her appearance had changed quite a bit. Her pupil color was hidden, her long hair was neatly combed, and the lines of her cheeks had softened, making her the very picture of a classical Eastern beauty. After all, she was a famous stray devil in the underworld, and this face of hers was too easy to recognize. When it was time to disguise herself, she had to do so. Hello, my name is Sharon, and I'm Luo Yu's girlfriend. Kuroka smiled sweetly. After speaking, she even grabbed Luo Yu's arm and pulled it into her embrace. Luo Yu pulled his hand out and shot her a warning look. Don't go too far. Girlfriend. As those words hit them, Sona, Tsubaki Shinra, and Raya Kusaka were all stunned. An indescribable feeling suddenly welled up in Sona's heart, leaving her in a daze. Tsubaki Shinra's eyes were full of gossip. Master clearly already had a fiancé, yet he actually kept a girlfriend on the side. This was way too unfaithful. It's really unfair to mistress. Smack. Luo Yu raised his hand and rapped Kuroka on the forehead. Speak properly, and stop talking nonsense here. Otherwise, beat it back to wherever you came from. Then he turned to explain to Sona and the others, don't listen to her nonsense. She doesn't even count as a friend, she just stubbornly tagged along. Kuroka's mouth still wouldn't stop, and she added an even more outrageous comment, having babies. Tsubaki Shinra widened her eyes, her gaze sweeping back and forth between Luo Yu and Kuroka. Sona's heart suddenly tightened, as if someone had grabbed hold of something inside her, leaving her feeling stifled. She could tell that what this girl was saying might not be true, but there was definitely something going on between her and Luo Yu. This feeling made her very uncomfortable. Luo Yu cast a cold glance at Kuroka. Kuroka immediately shut her mouth. She knew that if she really riled this guy up, he wouldn't be polite with her. You don't need to take what she said to heart, Just treat her as an ordinary friend of mine. Sona, please arrange a room for her. Sona didn't respond immediately. She stared at him for quite a while before quietly uttering 3 words. I understand. Her tone sounded as cold as usual, but upon closer listening, there was an indescribable low undertone. How boring, and here I wanted to sleep with Luo Yu. Kuroka muttered softly. Luo Yu simply pretended not to hear. The morning sunlight spilled into the villa as Tsubaki Shinra arrived on time for her appointment. Tomorrow was the opening day of Kuo Academy. She had previously agreed with Sona to enroll together, so she would be staying in this villa for the time being. Lately, she had been adapting to her devil body, and her strength had firmly reached the level of a high-class devil. If she also factored in the sacred gear inside her body, she was not inferior at all compared to pure-blooded devils like Sona and Rias Grimori. This was also what Sona valued the most. The maid led her through the garden, and Tsubaki Shinra suddenly stopped in her tracks. She froze on the spot, her eyes staring straight at a dancing figure not far away. Miss Tsubaki, what's wrong? Seeing her dazed, the maid asked softly. I can't be mistaken, those are master's moves. Hearing the maid's call, Tsubaki Shinra suddenly snapped out of it. Ignoring the maid's shouts behind her, she ran straight toward that figure. Tsubaki Shinra wiped the sweat from her forehead, looking with satisfaction at the results in front of her. A wooden dummy stood there, its vital areas covered in fist prints, and its 2 arms had already been broken by her. With her past physical fitness, let alone breaking it like this, just hitting a solid wooden dummy with her fists would have been enough to hurt her. Tsubaki Shinra was able to hold out for so long entirely thanks to the physical techniques taught by her master, along with her master's wife using secret medicine to temper her body every now and then. As she sweated profusely, she calculated in her mind, after practicing for a few more months, I should be able to get the hang of these moves master taught me. When the time comes, maybe I can go on missions with him and slay a few devils myself. This girl had absolutely no idea that she had already stepped into a devil's den. She was still dreaming the majestic dream of an exorcist, thinking of one day slaying all the evil spirits in the world. Suddenly, a chill ran down her spine. Someone was approaching. Before she could even turn around, a hand tightly gripped her arms with astonishing strength. Who taught you these skills? A cold, urgent voice rang in her ear. Tsubaki Shinra turned around and saw an unfamiliar girl, who also had a long sword hanging at her waist, of the exact same style as hers. Speak. Seeing her stay silent, Tsubaki Shinra applied more force. Tsubaki Shinra gasped in pain. Who are you? My master taught me, who else could it be? Tsubaki Shinra's face wrinkled in pain. Your master. Tsubaki Shinra froze, and just as she was about to press for where that person was, her body shuddered. A few seconds later, she let go of Tsubaki Shinra, turned, and rushed toward the villa. Hiss. That hurts like hell. What on earth is the deal with that violent woman? Tsubaki Shinra rubbed her wrist, muttering under her breath. Even now, she had no idea what had happened, having been mysteriously treated so roughly by a woman of unknown origin. She should be your senior disciple's sister. Sona had stood behind her at some point, looking in the direction Tsubaki Shinra had run off to with a complex expression. Master's wife. Could it be that besides me and sister Ria Kusaka, Master has an eldest senior disciple sister above us? Tsubaki Shinra widened her eyes in shock. She had completely unexpected that Luo Yu actually had this layer of relationship. Looking at her master's wife's expression, she probably didn't know beforehand either. Indeed, Sona had not expected that the person Tsubaki Shinra was looking for was actually Luo Yu. She murmured softly, Luo Yu, just how many things are you still hiding? From the holy sword, to that, Chiron, with whom he had an ambiguous relationship, and now to this Tsubaki Shinra who claimed to be his disciple. In her eyes, Luo Yu was like someone shrouded in a thick fog, impossible to see clearly. If she hadn't accidentally run into Tsubaki Shinra today, his identity as a master would probably have remained hidden. Just like when Tsubaki Shinra underwent her devil reincarnation, Luo Yu had pretended to be a complete stranger. No, perhaps he had accompanied her to wait in the hall for Tsubaki Shinra just to catch a glimpse of his disciple. But why hide it even from his disciple, who was desperately searching for him? Just what was it for? When the knock on the door sounded, it carried a clear urgency and nervousness. Luo Yu sat in his room, sensing that familiar aura rapidly approaching. A bitter smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. He had miscalculated. He had thought Tsubaki Shinra wouldn't perceive his identity so quickly, but who knew she was much sharper than imagined. When he taught her physical techniques back then, although they were generally the same as what Tsubaki Shinra was learning now, there were still some differences in the details. And she had actually caught on to just that tiny difference. He had originally planned to acknowledge her after the God Fall plan was over. This would save a lot of trouble. Even if he ultimately failed, not acknowledging her would prevent her from being implicated. But now, the accident had already happened, and it was too late to say anything. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking was urgent and erratic, revealing the apprehension and excitement in the knocker's heart at this moment. Come in, little Tsubaki. The door was pushed open. Tsubaki Shinra stood at the doorway, her breathing somewhat hurried. The moment she heard that form of address, her body trembled slightly. This voice, this tone. It was all too familiar. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. When her gaze fell upon the young girl in the room, she froze. It was not what she had imagined. She had expected to see a figure clad in red armor, but what appeared before her was a girl about her age. She had seen this person before. Sona's fiancé. A trace of hesitation welled up in Tsubaki Shinra's heart. Too young. In her fantasy, her master's appearance should be that of a mature, middle-aged man, decisive in killing and highly experienced. But this face before her. Little Tsubaki, you've really grown up. Luo Yu looked at her, his eyes filled with a smile. The Tsubaki Shinra before him was no longer the little bean sprout who used to follow behind him, she was now about the same height as him, and she carried a mature aura. Master. Tsubaki Shinra's hesitation completely vanished at this moment. The smile in those eyes and the gentleness in that tone could not lie. She was certain. The person before her was indeed the master she had been searching for all these years. He was her final reliance in her heart after she escaped from the Shinra clan. Her eyes instantly turned red. I'm sorry, little Tsubaki, you've suffered all these years. Luo Yu walked up to her and gently reached out to wipe away the tears at the corners of her eyes. Master. Tsubaki Shinra looked at him, and all the grievances and confusion accumulated in her heart over the years suddenly surged up. Tears fell uncontrollably. Luo Yu sighed softly. Luo Yu sighed, feeling a bit sour in his heart. He reached out and pulled the stubborn little girl into his arms, gently patting her back and rubbing her hair just like when she was a child. After a long while, only then did Tsubaki Shinra raise her head from Luo Yu's chest, her eyes red and still carrying a few tears. I've been to the underworld, sneaked into the church, and even ran around the Norse, Greek, and Hindu pantheons, but there was no sign of master in any of those places. In the end, having no other choice, I could only return to the place where we first met, Kuo Town. She paused, her voice carrying a hint of grievance. Master has always been here, but why? Little Tsubaki, I didn't hide it from you on purpose. In a few days, you will naturally understand. Tsubaki Shinra didn't press any further. She knew in her heart that if her master didn't have an unavoidable reason, he definitely wouldn't refuse to acknowledge her. By the way, Master, I reincarnated as a devil without your permission. You won't be angry, right? She looked at Luo Yu a bit nervously. Human potential is indeed a bit lacking. Even with a sacred gear, we're still far behind races like gods and devils. Although reincarnating as a devil isn't the best path, it's passable. Hearing Luo Yu say this, the stone in Tsubaki Shinra's heart finally fell to the ground. But immediately after, she remembered another thing. The pure-blooded devil who had reincarnated her was actually her master's fiancé. Her heart suddenly felt stifled, an indescribable awkwardness and discomfort washing over her. Clearly, she was the one who knew master first, so why should a devil? She knew that her master's engagement to that pure-blooded devil was nothing more than a contract set by the elders of both sides. She had accidentally heard Sona mention this when they first met. Sona had come to the human world precisely to fulfill this marriage. Only, she didn't know back then that the person was her master. If it weren't for her master, she would never have agreed to become Sona's peerage member. Originally, Tsubaki Shinra had planned to sever her peerage relationship with Sona after finding her master. But now, She had found her master, but she didn't know what to do instead. She subconsciously gripped the corner of Luo Yu's clothes, terrified that he would suddenly disappear before her again. Inside the bamboo pavilion in the garden, Sona sat alone, her expression somewhat complex, glancing toward Luo Yu's room from time to time. An inexplicable irritability welled up in her heart, leaving her with no mind to even look at the chess endgame set up in front of her. Has the eldest daughter of our house Citri finally had her first awakening of love? A charming, teasing voice suddenly rang in Sona's ear. Sona frowned, looking at Kuroka, who had appeared before her at some unknown point. Before the other party spoke, she hadn't sensed a thing. Miss Sharon, you are a devil, aren't you? A stray devil. As expected of the heir of House Citri. Even though I hid so carefully, you still saw through me. Kuroka looked around, finding no place where she had exposed a flaw, feeling a bit puzzled in her heart. As the morning sunlight just spilled through the windows, children who had played wildly during the holidays crawled out of their blankets one by one with bitter faces. Today was the day for returning students to go back to school, as well as the registration day for new students. Inside the villa, Sona and her companions had all woken up very early. The group sat at the dining table in the hall, finishing every last bit of their breakfast, before preparing to set off for Kuo Academy to report. However, Kuroka, that lazy cat, was not among them. At this moment, she was still fast asleep in her room, with absolutely no intention of getting out of bed. Tsubaki Shinra walked at the very back of the group, tugging at Raya Kusaka's sleeve and muttering in a low voice, "Sister Raya, did you notice? The atmosphere during breakfast just now was practically freezing. The relationship between our senior sister and our master's wife doesn't seem quite right." As she spoke, her eyes remained fixed on the three people ahead of them. Their senior sister, Tsubaki Shinra, was intimately holding onto their master's arm, while their master's wife walked to the side, looking very much like an outsider. That tense feeling hadn't dissipated even now. Is that so? Raya Kusaka responded casually, but her gaze remained locked on Luo Yu. Her brow furrowed slightly, lost in thought. Of course it is. Did you really not feel it at all, Sister Raya? Tsubaki Shinra looked at Raya beside her with some puzzlement. She had always felt she was a bit careless and slow to react to things around her. She hadn't expected Sister Raya to be even more dense than her. Stop talking about this. If our master's wife hears you, she'll make you train extra. Raya Kusaka cut her off directly, not wanting to say more. Sure enough, as soon as those words were said, Tsubaki Shinra behaved herself. She stole a glance at Sona's back and shrank her neck. Lately, their master's wife had been far stricter and harsher than their master. Or rather, Luo Yu didn't pay attention to details at all. Once he finished teaching what needed to be taught and saying what needed to be said, the rest was entirely up to their own practice. To put it simply, it was the saying, the master leads you to the door, but the cultivation is up to the individual. As a side note, Tsubaki Shinra and Raya Kusaka were quite a bit younger than Luo Yu and Sona, so they shouldn't have been enrolling with them. However, to make future training more convenient, Sona had Kuo Academy admit them under the guise of special recruitment. But for now, they were only attending classes as auditing students, not official freshmen. Only next year would the two of them start over from the first year. Before they had walked very far, the group was already standing in front of the gates of Kuo Academy. The surroundings were filled with youthful and beautiful girls, overflowing with lively energy. Luo Yu, as the only green leaf among them, instantly attracted countless gazes. Everyone was quite puzzled. Wasn't Kuo Academy an all-girls school? Why was a guy showing up to register? Looking at the emblem on his school uniform, it was indeed that of Kuo Academy. A few girls also recalled something. It seemed there had been a change in the school's enrollment reform plan during the holidays. Originally, they planned to admit boys a year later, transitioning from an all-girls school to a co-ed academy, but now it had been moved forward. So it made sense for a boy to enroll. However, looking at the current situation, Luo Yu was likely the only male student in the school. Luo Yu could only smile wryly as he walked into the opening ceremony hall, enduring the gazes from all directions that made him feel like a monkey in a zoo. On the way, Sona split from the group early because she had to act as the freshman representative. Master, does this count as entering the kingdom of women? Tsubaki Shinra sat down and couldn't help but tease. How I feel doesn't matter. You'll soon feel what it's like to have your entire body aching. Luo Yu glanced at her, his tone flat. TCH, Master is so heartless, such a blockhead. Tsubaki Shinra's words had inadvertently hit upon the truth. Beside them, Tsubaki Shinra and Raya Kusaka nodded secretly, agreeing madly in their hearts. The little girl is right, Ayu is just a blockhead. He's been mature beyond his years since he was a kid, like a little old man. He's incredibly dense in some areas, and I don't even know if he's genuinely dense or just pretending. Of all the people Luo Yu knew, the only one who would call him Ayu so intimately was Akano Himehime. She hadn't come alone, she was accompanied by a silver-haired little girl. The girl had precious few expressions on her face, looking like an exquisite doll that made one want to hold her in their arms. Tsubaki Shinra immediately became alert. This woman knew her master. She sized up the other party's appearance and figure, and a sense of crisis couldn't help but rise in her heart. Compared to her master's fiancé, who held all the advantages on paper, the woman before her was a much greater threat. Akano, don't say things that can be so easily misunderstood. Luo Yu spoke helplessly. HMPH, is it not? Akano Himehime snorted in dissatisfaction, then pulled Kaneko to sit on his right. Sitting on his left were Tsubaki Shinra and the others. My name is Akano Himehime. I'm Luo Yu's childhood friend and also Rias Grimori's queen. This is Kaneko, Rias Grimori's rook. Akano Himehime introduced herself with a smile, while also introducing Kaneko beside her. Hello, Sister Akano, I know you guys. Tsubaki Shinra, Raya Kusaka, Sona's prospective servants. And Tsubaki Shinra, Sona's queen. You're also Ayu's disciples, am I correct? Akano Himehime's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. Tsubaki Shinra frowned. She hadn't expected the other party to be her master's childhood friend, and the tone of her voice made her very uncomfortable, as if she were suddenly a tier below her. She could swallow her pride before her master, but that didn't mean others could treat her this way. Even if this woman claimed to be her master's childhood friend, it wouldn't do. Servants. Queen. Tsubaki Shinra listened, completely bewildered. Don't you know? Devil peerages are divided according to chess pieces, the evil pieces. Akano. Luo Yu wanted to interrupt her, but he was a step too slow, and some key information had already been leaked. Looking at the shocked expressions of Tsubaki Shinra and Raya Kusaka, Luo Yu smiled wryly. Today was truly one trouble after another. Tsubaki Shinra suddenly snapped out of it, pointing at Akano Himehime and Kaneko, her voice cracking. Devil servants. You are devil servants. Fortunately, the hall was already quite noisy, otherwise Tsubaki Shinra's loud voice would have definitely drawn everyone's attention. Although she didn't quite know what a devil servant specifically meant, she could guess from the literal meaning, they were servants of devils. Tsubaki Shinra's brain was struggling to process this. This woman named Akano Himehime was her master's childhood friend. Then she must be a devil's servant, right? And the little girl beside her was too. But the problem wasn't their master an exorcist? A massive jumble of thoughts tangled up in her mind. Raya Kusaka, however, was much calmer. Unlike Tsubaki Shinra, she didn't just focus on the latter half of the sentence and completely ignore the key information from before. She stole a glance at Tsubaki Shinra. The words just now had made it crystal clear, their senior sister was also a servant. A devil's servant. Sona's servant. Doesn't that make her their master's wife's person? In that case, is their master's wife herself a devil? Then what about their master? The more Raya Kusaka thought about it, the more she felt something was off, and her expression became increasingly complex. She suddenly realized that she and Tsubaki Shinra probably hadn't found some exorcist at all. What they had found might actually be a devil. Who said only exorcists could slay fallen angels? It wasn't impossible for a devil to take action and kill fallen angels. And looking back now, the whole apprenticeship thing had felt like a joke from start to finish. Their master had only casually agreed to it after their master's wife gave him a look. My. Akano Himehime covered her mouth, her smile full of mischief. Ah you, it seems your two little disciples don't know anything at all. Her tone was clearly filled with the amusement of watching a spectacle. Luo Yu glared fiercely at Akano Himehime, who was still fanning the flames. Then he turned his head to look at Tsubaki Shinra and Rei Kusaka. The two girls were still frozen in place, their expressions half shocked and half suspicious. Before Luo Yu could explain, Rei Kusaka spoke first. She asked very cautiously, Master, are you a devil too? Tsubaki Shinra also stared at Luo Yu nervously, waiting for his answer. I am not a devil. Luo Yu shook his head, telling the truth. Of course, strictly speaking, he wasn't human either. He was now a pure dragon. Hearing Luo Yu deny being a devil, Rei Kusaka instantly breathed a sigh of relief. Then why does Master? Before Tsubaki Shinra could finish her sentence, Luo Yu cut in, you want to ask why I have a devil fiancé? Tsubaki Shinra nodded hurriedly. Rei Kusaka beside her was also full of curiosity. Master's engagement with her was decided by the ancestors of both families. It's not something Master can decide on his own. Tsubaki Shinra chimed in, her tone carrying obvious dissatisfaction toward Sona. Luo Yu gave her a helpless look. This disciple of his probably held a huge grudge against Sona now because of him. Speaking of which, this was indeed a bit unfair to Sona. She was supposed to have a loyal servant, but now her own subordinate was being swayed. So it was decided by Master's ancestors. Tsubaki Shinra and Rei Kusaka both nodded. You two shouldn't just dwell on the devil identity. Don't forget, Sona has never done anything to harm you all these days. Luo Yu swept his gaze over the two. Running into a devil's territory to look for an exorcist to take as your master, only you two could do something like that. Do you know that in that villa, everyone except me is a devil? Tsubaki Shinra and Rei Kusaka's faces instantly froze. Tsubaki Shinra scratched her face awkwardly. The idea of seeking out an exorcist to become their master was her suggestion, and she was the one who dragged Sister Rhea along. Hearing her master say this now, they really had barged straight into a devil's nest. Those maids were devils, the amiable butler Izumi was a devil, and that strange Miss Sharon was also a devil. Sona is the next head of the Citri clan, one of the 72 pillars of the underworld, and a pure-blooded high-class devil. When it comes to status, she is more noble than many gods in the three realms. After all, her elder sister is one of the four great Satans of the underworld, Seraphal Leviathan. Luo Yu briefly introduced Sona's background to Tsubaki Shinra and Rei Kusaka, these two newbies who had just stepped into the world of gods and devils. The heir of the Citri clan. The younger sister of a Satan. A pure-blooded devil. Just hearing these titles felt incredibly lofty, leaving Tsubaki Shinra and Rei Kusaka completely dumbfounded. The two of them looked at Sona, who was speaking on stage as the freshman representative, realizing for the first time in their hearts just how powerful this master's wife of theirs actually was. But it was also the first time they felt that the devils of legend were completely different from what they had imagined. Aren't they supposed to be clawing, ferocious, bloodthirsty creatures? Aren't they supposed to play tricks in the dark, tricking humans out of their souls for deals? The devils you have in mind are, to be precise, called stray devils. They are filthy creatures that have lost themselves and are addicted to slaughter. Those are basically what exorcists usually slay. On the other hand, pure-blooded devils like Sona are on the exact same tier as the gods of other mythologies. Luo Yu saw the doubt in their hearts and specifically explained. On the same level as a god. Then Master's wife is way too amazing. Tsubaki Shinra couldn't help but shout out. Although she didn't understand what exactly a pure-blooded devil was, she still understood the word, God. Then, just now Miss Akino said that Tsubaki Shinra and I are candidates for Master's wife's peerage. This. Rei Kusaka didn't forget the unfamiliar term from the conversation just now that caught her attention. Literally. Sona wants to take you into her peerage, and through the devil reincarnation ritual, turn you into reincarnated devils. Having said this much, Luo Yu didn't plan on hiding anything else. Looking at the two girls with complicated expressions, he added, I'm not asking you to give an answer right now. Sona, of course, won't force you. She is looking for like-minded companions, not unwilling subordinates. Of course, after becoming a devil, not only will the upper limit of human potential be shattered, but your lifespan will also be nearly infinite. You'll have to weigh the pros and cons yourselves. Luo Yu had clearly explained everything that should and could be said. As their nominal master, it was enough for him to just give them a nudge. Saying any more would instead affect their own judgment. Ah you really are gentle. Akano Himahima smiled as she took Luo Yu's hand. Ah did you know? After you killed Kiba Yuto, Rias Grimori was so angry she wanted to tear you into 1,000 pieces. At this moment, Kaneko also glanced at Luo Yu. After all, Kiba Yuto had been a companion in Rias Grimori's peerage, just like her. Although they had only just met at this point in time, and Kiba Yuto had only recently been taken into Rias Grimori's peerage, so their bond was naturally not as deep as it would be when the main plot officially started 3 years later. But still, having a companion whom she was supposed to fight alongside for a long time in the future suddenly get killed, Kaneko still cared deep down. Moreover, she smelled a familiar scent from Luo Yu, the scent of her older sister. A gleam flashed in Kaneko's eyes as she stared at Luo Yu's profile, wondering what she was thinking. Just a mad dog that only barks at dead things, nothing to worry about. Luo Yu said casually, prompting even Tsubaki Shinra beside him to cast a doubtful look. You'd better not let Rias Grimori hear those words, or she really will fight you to the death. She can't do anything. It would only matter if her older brother came. Luo Yu's tone was completely indifferent. A high-class devil, so what if she's a pure blood? Even if she risked her life, she probably wouldn't even be able to pierce the defense of the Holy Light Dragon's body. Isn't her cousin Saraorg Bale the best example? Sona's speech as the freshman representative came to an end. She announced that she would establish Kuo Academy's student council. The audience below instantly erupted into a clamor. It wasn't that Kuo Academy didn't have a student council before, but most of them were just for show, looking good but useless. Over time, the school authorities abolished it. No one expected. A whole week had already passed since the start of the semester at Kuo Academy. Sona had thrown herself entirely into the establishment of the student council over the past few days. As for Rias Grimori, exactly as Luo Yu had predicted, she occupied the school's old dormitory building within a few days and set up the Occult Research Club. A club with only 3 members in total. Everything seemed to be moving along a line that had been drawn long ago. Tsubaki Shinra and Rei Kusaka, these two girls had been struggling with their thoughts for several days ever since they learned Sona was a pure-blooded devil on the day of the opening ceremony. Later, Sona personally had a talk with them. The two of them finally nodded, willing to become Sona's peerage members and turn into reincarnated devils through devil reincarnation. Tsubaki Shinra's piece was the knight. Rei Kusaka's piece was the bishop. The two of them, just like Tsubaki Shinra, also joined the student council. However, the difference was that Tsubaki Shinra was a freshman who had officially passed the entrance exam, so she was directly a formal member. Tsubaki Shinra and Rei Kusaka were specially admitted students, so they could only be considered temporary workers in the student council. If they wanted to become official, they would have to wait until they actually enrolled next year. On the surface, everything was calm and peaceful. But Luo Yu knew in his heart that this was just the calm before the storm. The student council office was ridiculously large, no worse than the principal's office. It had everything it should, with green plants and a minimalist style, clearly Sona's preferred taste. The school had clearly put a lot of effort into this. Thinking about it, Kuo Town was originally a place jointly managed by the Seatree clan and the Grimori clan. And Kuo Academy was the training ground for these two heirs. The principal and board members were all devils under their command, so of course they had to find ways to make their future bosses comfortable. They had to make sure the bosses were satisfied in every aspect. Let alone a small matter like setting up a student council. Even if they wanted to tear down the entire school and rebuild it, it would just be a matter of a single word. Sona sat in the president's chair, wearing her glasses, seriously flipping through the mountain of documents piled on the desk. These were a pile of messy affairs accumulated over the years when the school had no student council to manage them. Before, there was no one to clean up this mess, so it could only be kept on hold. In the student council office, the fountain pen in Sona's hand suddenly stopped. She looked up, staring at Luo Yu in shock. You're leaving. The documents in Tsubaki Shinra's hands dropped straight to the floor. Not even bothering to pick them up, she rushed to Luo Yu in a few steps, her voice carrying a hint of crying. Master, didn't you promise me? You said you wouldn't leave again, that you wouldn't leave me alone anymore. Luo Yu raised his hand and pressed her shoulder, his tone very gentle. It's not the kind of leaving you're thinking of. He patiently comforted this easily anxious young girl. This child had an especially strong reaction whenever she heard he was leaving. I indeed have to leave for a while, and the duration won't be too short. Hearing the second half of the sentence, Tsubaki Shinra finally breathed a sigh of relief. But Sona's expression grew even more solemn instead. If he were just going out for a few ordinary days, there would be no need for Luo Yu to specifically let the two of them know. According to his past style, he would have disappeared silently long ago. Besides, over the past few days, Luo Yu hadn't shut himself in his room like before, but had gone to and from school normally with them. The words Sharon had said suddenly flashed through Sona's mind. Won't stay in this position for too long. She stared at Luo Yu for a long time, and finally let out a sigh. Come back early. She didn't ask where Luo Yu was going or what he was going to do. Those questions were completely meaningless. Luo Yu smiled and nodded. Okay. Not long after, Luo Yu left Kuo Academy and crossed the boundary of Kuo Town. Those who had a connection with him looked up almost at the exact same instant, gazing in the same direction. Some were worrying about him. Some were praying for him, hoping he would return safely soon. In the deepest part of the underworld, Hades' realm. Everywhere here were black ironstone mountains, and the death energy was so thick it wouldn't disperse, even condensing into black rain that drifted in the dark red sky, occasionally falling in showers. The depths of Hades' realm were filled with the aura of death. If any living creature stepped in here, within just a few breaths, their vitality would be drained dry by the death energy, turning them into wandering souls. Those with good luck might catch the eye of the god of the underworld, Hades, and be promoted directly from a tattered soul on the verge of dispersing to a grim reaper. But such good fortune wouldn't be encountered even once in 100 years. In the deepest part of the continuous mountain range stood a gloomy temple. The god of the underworld, Hades, was sleeping inside. At this moment, on the outskirts of the temple, over a dozen grim reapers were patrolling with tense faces. They had to prevent any blind wandering soul from breaking in and waking the supreme god. As for someone daring to launch an attack here, they hadn't even thought of it. After all, their god had been one of the top 10 strongest beings in the world since ancient times. Who would dare come to seek death? But today, this ironclad rule was broken. Above the dim, reddish sky of Hades' realm, a sphere of light emerged without any warning. That thing grew larger and brighter, emitting a blinding white light. What on earth is that? Not only did the Grim Reapers at the temple gates see it, but all the wandering souls and Grim Reapers in the entire Hades realm could see it clearly. As the light shone down, many Grim Reapers felt extremely uncomfortable, and the bodies of some already weak wandering souls directly began to fade, painfully heading toward dissipation. The sphere of light grew larger and larger. To be precise, it was falling closer and closer. Quickly activate the temple defenses. This is an attack. The holy light dragon's breath. The one shouting was Hades' right-hand man, the high-tier Grim Reaper Pluto. He could feel that the power of this dragon breath had already reached the Super Devil King class level. Just relying on them Grim Reapers, they couldn't possibly withstand it. Even if they called upon all the other high-tier Grim Reapers like Thanatos and Orcus, it would still be like an ant trying to stop a carriage. He had no time to think about why such a powerful holy light dragon had come to blast Hades' realm. The only thing to do was to protect the temple and prevent the attack from waking the sleeping god of the underworld. Just at this moment, puff, puff, puff. Before Pluto and the others could even activate the defenses, over a dozen spear shadows suddenly thrust out from the darkness. The spears directly pierced through the bodies of Pluto and several Grim Reapers. This is the true Longinus. Pluto widened his eyes, looking down at his chest. That holy spear had pierced through him, and scorching divine power instantly erupted. Before he could even struggle, his entire body turned into mist and completely vanished into thin air. The other pierced Grim Reapers also vanished completely amidst screams. A gift from the Red Dragon Emperor surely deserves to be accompanied by a loud firework. A young man carrying a spear leisurely walked out from the darkness. An arrogant smile hung on his face. The Holy Emperor Cao Cao and the Red Dragon Emperor teaming up to launch a sneak attack on Hades' realm. The Grim Reapers present instantly erupted in an uproar, their angry roars echoing together. Cao Cao only smiled coldly. What are you shouting for? If you have this spare time, you'd better think about how to block the Red Dragon Emperor's attack. Let's hope this blow can shake awake that sleeping old thing in the temple. Before his voice had even faded, his figure vanished directly from the spot. He didn't want to stay and get beaten up alongside this bunch of Grim Reapers. Right after that, boom, a world-shattering explosion erupted. Scorching holy power surged out overwhelmingly, carrying a momentum that could destroy everything, instantly swallowing the entire temple. Countless Grim Reapers didn't even have time to finish screaming before they turned to ashes in the light. Even those wandering souls in the distance were not spared, dissipating in large patches into the air. This commotion was too massive. Not only did it spread throughout Hades' realm, but even the deepest corners of the underworld were trembling. Devils and pure-blood noble lords from all sides turned their heads, their gazes uniformly casting toward the direction of Hades' realm. Surprise and suspicion were written all over everyone's faces. What on earth happened over in Hades' realm? Could someone really have grown so incredibly bold as to dare break into Hades' territory? An extremely hoarse roar erupted from the depths of the ruins. Immediately after, overwhelming death energy surged out like a tide. That pressure was so terrifying that even space trembled violently, and the ground cracked open layer by layer. A skeleton wearing a divine robe slowly rose from the shattered temple. Hades's gaze was extremely cold as he glared intently at the four figures in the sky. Red Dragon Emperor, White Dragon Emperor, Thunder Emperor, Holy Emperor, you four brats have some nerve, daring to attack even the underworld. In midair, the four figures lined up side by side. A young man carrying a spear stood tall and proud. A figure enveloped in lightning stood with the majesty of a divine statue. A young man in silver-white armor exuded a cold aura. At the very front was a massive dragon, over 50 jong in size. Hades's roar not only shook the entire underworld, but also penetrated every corner of the netherworld. Countless devils and major sect masters heard it loud and clear. The same thought popped into everyone's mind simultaneously: something big was bound to happen today. Something big enough to change the entire landscape of the netherworld. The four great emperors had joined forces to attack the underworld, their target aimed directly at Hades, god of the underworld. That was one of the top 10 strongest experts in the world. An existence that countless living beings could only look up to. Just as these devils and sect masters were still shocked by the boldness of the four great emperors and were watching the battle unfold. No one noticed. Two Maos had already quietly left the netherworld. Over in heaven, a few figures of seraphs could be faintly seen flying out. In a research laboratory deep in hell, Azazel put down the artificial sacred gear he had just completed and walked out. In the distant mountain range, a massive black dragon soared into the sky. On the eastern sea surface, someone came treading on the waves. One bolt of lightning after another exploded in the sky above Mount Olympus. Zeus suddenly stood up from his divine throne, his eyes white as copper bells. The entire sacred mountain was shaking, and the air was filled with the aura of destruction, causing the surrounding gods and divine messengers to shiver all over. A few ants holding broken sacred gears, did they really think they can slay a god just because they inherited the scrap metal of the god of destruction? No one dared to make a sound. No one knew why the god king had suddenly flown into such a rage. At this moment, two figures appeared out of thin air in the temple, blocking Zeus's path. Your Majesty God King, the Red Dragon Emperor and the others can't kill Hades. There's no need for you to be so worked up. Zeus narrowed his eyes. Ajuka, Circex. He glared intently at the two guys standing in front of him. The strength of these two had long been exposed, both were super devils. And neither was weaker than him. Especially Circex, who was enveloped in the power of destruction and had completely changed form, making Zeus feel a sense of danger. It was a threat stemming from life's instincts. Good. Very good. Zeus gritted his teeth. You in the netherworld have hidden yourselves deep indeed. Do you really think those four brats can make Hades fall? He was so angry his lungs felt like they were about to burst. But in the end, he held it in and sat back down on his throne. Neither of these two guys was to be trifled with. If they joined forces, he wouldn't be able to hold them off at all. Let alone fighting a battle between super devils on Mount Olympus, he might even lose his pantheon's entire foundation. The Norse pantheon. Odin looked with a smile at Michael, who was blocking his path. With just you alone, I'm afraid you won't be able to stop me. That's why, old man. A voice echoed from the sky. Didn't I run all the way over here just to give you plenty of face? Azazel descended from the sky, the governor general of the fallen angels and the leader of Grigori. Odin glanced at him. Those two brats from the heavenly dragon families really have great luck. The Hindu pantheon, Shiva, the god of destruction, had just stood up when he sat back down. The other two supreme gods could only smile bitterly. Blocking the pantheon's entrance were three major deities, Indra, the first-generation son Wukong, and Jade Dragon, one of the 5 great dragon kings. Fighting these guys just for a Cao Cao who had offended their pantheon. It wasn't that they couldn't win, they just felt it wasn't worth it. As for the other second-rate pantheons, they were either affiliates of the Greek pantheon or had been harassed by those problem children of the 4 great emperors. They had wanted to take advantage of the chaos to surround and suppress them. But instead, a black dragon blocked their path. An evil dragon. An evil dragon of the heavenly dragon class. The crescent circle's dark dragon, Krom Kruok. After the sound from the depths of the netherworld erupted, all the pantheons shut their mouths completely. Over at the underworld, the great battle had completely shattered the sky. One rumbling sound followed another, so violent it seemed as if it would overturn the entire netherworld. Luo Yu and the other 3 tightly pinned down Hades. This top-tier expert ranked in the world's top 10 was surrounded in the middle, his face distorted. Lightning struck wildly, holy light exploded chaotically, death energy surged, and magic power burst. Space shattered piece by piece, then healed piece by piece. Every clash of power carried away thousands of yin spirits. The Grim Reapers on the ground were also dragged into the battle. Cao Cao's faction, Siegfried, Heracles, and Georg, had all gone into a killing frenzy. Valley's subordinates, Arthur, Kuroka, and Lefay, were not idle either. Saraorg Bale rushed at the very front, taking down one with each strike. The Grim Reapers of the underworld were hacked to pieces. The onlookers around them all gasped in shock. These 4 emperors were planning to root out the underworld completely. Hades gritted his teeth in rage. These Grim Reapers were the foundation he had accumulated over tens of thousands of years. Still have time to be distracted. Cao Cao seized the opportunity and violently hurled the General Jewel. The true Longinus in his hand had already entered its balance breaker state, and the golden light of the brilliant spear of the Polar Knight Celestial Emperor surged violently. The spear pierced straight into Hades. Hades cried out in pain, his anger burning even hotter. Death energy instantly surged, sealing off the space around Cao Cao. He wanted to use the Horse Jewel's ability to flash away, but found there was nowhere to run. The spear condensed from death energy thrust straight down at Cao Cao's head. Valley immediately expanded the White Dragon Emperor's domain, cutting both the power and size of that spear in half. But even so, Cao Cao still couldn't withstand it and was blasted flying. This guy is just too reckless. Luo Yu stepped up, blocking a wave of Hades's fierce attacks. He knew in his heart that if he hadn't been here holding the line, the 3 of them would have been defeated one by one long ago. Once Cao Cao caught his breath and returned, they could slowly wear down this skeleton. Among the 4 of them, Luo Yu was the strongest. The other 3 were, at most, at the early Mal level. Time passed bit by bit. Luo Yu and the others completely took control of the battle. Hades, an expert of the Super Devil level, was pinned down completely. Valley and Cao Cao's coordination grew increasingly seamless, with any counterattack being neutralized by their combined efforts. The Zenith Tempest in Dulio's hand had already entered its balance breaker form, Speranza Duende. He pushed the power of his sacred gear to the limit, and cooperating with the strongest, Luo Yu, they ruthlessly pinned Hades down and beat him. After this battle, whether it was the devils of the netherworld or the spectators from the other 3 realms, everyone re-evaluated the weight of the 4 emperors. Hades and his group each had their strength soaring to the peak of the Super Devil King class. Combined with the special abilities of the sacred gears in their hands, they were much more difficult to deal with than ordinary peak Super Devil King class experts. Unless it was someone at the Super Devil level, they were truly hard to handle. These 4 of the 4 great emperors were now basically the top-tier combat forces standing at the peak of the 3 realms. Red Dragon Emperor, White Dragon Emperor, you two must die today. Being suppressed and beaten by 4 juniors, Hades completely lost his mind. Forming hand seals, he directly opened the seal of the gods buried beneath the temple ruins. Not good, retreat. Luo Yu's heart suddenly constricted, and a dread akin to encountering a natural enemy instantly surged through his entire body. He could clearly feel the scales on his body trembling, exuding an instinctive fear. His strength instantly dropped by several tiers. Valley beside him was also affected, though not as severely as he was. Hearing Luo Yu's shout, "Sao Sao, Valley," and Dulio did not hesitate for a second. They immediately retreated, pulling back their distance from Hades and confronting him from afar. At this moment, the terrifying thing sealed beneath the temple ruins finally revealed its true form. Black miasma surged, and within it appeared a monster with the upper body of a fallen angel and the lower body of a dragon. It seemed to gather all the malice, hatred, anger, and resentment in the world. It was purely the collection of all negative emotions in the world. As soon as this thing appeared, Luo Yu's strength was suppressed by several more tiers. Dragon Eater Samael. Hades actually dared to release it. It's out, Dragon Eater Samael. Valley, be careful. In Luo Yu's and Valley's minds, the voices of Didrag and Albion rang out simultaneously. The moment Dragon Eater Samael appeared, the faces of all the onlookers changed completely. Hades actually dared to openly violate the covenant of the gods to release this thing. Hades, that fool. Odin blew his top on the spot, disregarding his image to swear loudly right in front of Michael and Azazel. The 3 supreme gods of the Hindu pantheon, including Shiva, also looked displeased as they stared coldly at Hades. After this matter was over, they had to remove Dragon Eater Samael from the underworld. Such a dangerous thing had to be handed over to someone more reliable to guard. Michael of Heaven was a pretty good candidate. Zeus's face was also so dark it could practically drip water. He could feel that many people in the dark were casting dissatisfied looks at him. Who told Hades to be a member of his Greek pantheon? As the god king, he had to shoulder this responsibility. One had to know that dragon species were extremely important members in every pantheon. Some pantheons were governed entirely by dragon species. Dragon species held an extremely high status in the 3 realms. Anyone who dared to release the bane of dragon species, Dragon Eater Samael. That would be making an enemy of all dragon species in the 3 realms. Which was equivalent to making an enemy of all pantheons in the 3 realms. Above the underworld, the black mist pressed lower and lower. That aura felt like countless curses slamming onto his body, causing Luo Yu's heart to sink. Dragon Eater Samael's Dragon Slayer curse is indeed the most fatal thing to the dragon race. He stared at Samael's distorted figure, which was still howling desperately, as if trying to roar out all its malice. Hee. Red Dragon Emperor, White Dragon Emperor, in front of the Dragon Eater, how much of your capability is still left? Hades's voice was hoarse and unpleasant, like sandpaper scraping on sheet metal. His plan was very simple: take advantage of Samael's curse suppressing the 2 Dragon Emperors to finish them off first. The remaining Holy Emperor and Thunder Emperor were simply not worth mentioning. With his strength as a super devil, cleaning them up would be extremely easy. Having fought for so long, Hades had also understood. Among these 4, the most troublesome one was the Red Dragon Emperor. After that guy reincarnated into the dragon race, his combat power had skyrocketed. Especially his holy power, which naturally countered death energy, making him even more ruthless than Michael and the others of heaven. Hades, did you think I'd be stupid enough to just deliver myself to your doorstep? Luo Yu didn't give him any chance to react at all, shouting to the 3 behind him, Valley, Sao Sao, Dulio, do it. Several spatial chains were instantly pulled out from the hands of the 3. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell at a glance that this thing had not been prepared in just a day or 2. Hades frowned. He couldn't understand what the Red Dragon Emperor was trying to do. But no matter what, they couldn't be allowed to succeed. He was just about to strike and sever those chains. But Luo Yu suddenly swung her massive body, blocking Hades directly and stopping him dead in his tracks. Many onlookers began to murmur in doubt. Could they really deal with the Dragon Eater Samael with just these few spatial chains? While Luo Yu held Hades back, 3 chains had already wrapped around Samael's body. The Dragon Eater, who had been howling madly just a moment ago, suddenly began to blur. It looked as if he was about to vanish from this world. Someone finally realized. Wait, those aren't ordinary spatial chains. Those are spatial coordinates carved onto the Dragon Eater by the gods back then, they're actually keys. Activating the coordinates triggers the seal in his soul, temporarily locking him in a pocket dimension. The last safeguard the gods left on the Dragon Eater was precisely to prevent someone from recklessly undoing the seal. Looking at it now, the gods' worries back then were indeed not unfounded. Those chains were just a distraction. Hades, god of the underworld, is done for this time. The four great emperors clearly came prepared. Hades is in real trouble this time. Hades blasted Luo Yu back with a punch, his face so gloomy it looked like it could drip water. He stared intently at the slowly vanishing figure, Dragon Eater Samael, who was being dragged bit by bit into a pocket dimension to be sealed. You really have infiltrated the underworld more than once. He grit his teeth and spoke. Samael had a spatial key hidden on him. You calculated that I would release him and deliberately used this to seal him away. He had miscalculated. Hades's mind quickly raced through the details of when the gods originally sealed Samael. Back then, just in case, the gods had indeed left a semi-public key on Samael. Anyone skilled in manipulating spatial coordinates could easily replicate it to temporarily lock Samael away. He remembered that the Thunder Emperor was an expert in this field. Hades's cold gaze swept over the four people surrounding him once more. Do you really think you can take me down like this? Luo Yu replied coldly, of course it's not that simple. Now that Samael is temporarily dealt with, it's time to show our real cards. She paused. Do it. Go all out and send the god of the underworld on his way. The moment her voice fell, Cao Cao was the first to move. We should have done this sooner. Why waste time? Balance breaker. True Longinus, Polar Knight. He raised the True Longinus, calling out not his previous subspecies balance breaker name, but its true name. Holy brilliance erupted instantly, enveloping the entire underworld, illuminating even the deepest darkness of this realm. Cao Cao's aura surged violently, breaking straight into the quasi-super devil level. This was the true power of the True Longinus's balance breaker. Next was Valley. Juggernaut Drive. His entire body suddenly expanded, and 6 pairs of devil wings grew from his back, the hallmark of a descendant of the original Devil King Lucifer. His strength similarly soared to the quasi-super devil level. Seeing this, Dulio stopped holding back as well. You're all monsters. I'm not hiding either. 5 pairs of angel wings unfurled behind his back, and a holy halo appeared above his head. The boost wasn't as exaggerated as Cao Cao's or Valley's, but it still more than doubled his baseline. Finally, it was Luo Yu. Sacred Juggernaut Drive. Her body, which was already over 50 chong tall, expanded once more, approaching 100 chong in the blink of an eye. The entire dragon turned a holy white, even more dazzling than the previous holy light dragon, with her scales shimmering with an even purer sacred light. A massive wave of holy power swept through the entire underworld like a tide. The 9 massive crimson dragon holy swords melted together directly, transforming into a divine mirror like a bright sun hanging in midair, its light shining upon the 3 realms. Hades's expression became extremely ugly. He looked up at the massive figure that was almost bursting the underworld. That fellow's strength was no longer at the quasi-super devil level. It was that of a true super devil. 1 peak super devil king class, 2 quasi-super devils, and 1 genuine super devil. Hades knew in his heart that if he continued to fight them head-on, he might really fall here today. Above the underworld, there was a dead silence. The sudden explosion of power from the 4 great emperors completely dumbfounded all the onlookers. Peak Super Devil King class, Quasi-Super Devil, Super Devil. This was the true level of the 4 great emperors. Any single one of them was no weaker than the top combat forces of the premier pantheons in the 3 realms. You should know that the 4 seraphim of heaven could only exert a peak combat power equivalent to the Super Devil King class like the Thunder Emperor, when in the 3 realms. Only by returning to heaven could they grow as strong as a quasi-super devil. The devil kings of the underworld, Seraphol Leviathan and Falbium Asmodeus, were in a similar situation. And the Thunder Emperor was actually the weakest among the 4 great emperors. What was even more shocking was that their identities had also been exposed. The devils and various house heads of the underworld stared with complex expressions at Valley, who who was locked in a fierce, inseparable battle with Hades. The White Dragon Emperor of this generation was actually a descendant of the original devil King Lucifer. On the other side, the powerhouses of the church also stared wide-eyed at Dulio. The darling of the church, a hybrid of human and angel, actually possessed power at the level of a 10-winged angel. They had no idea the church harbored such a child of light, let alone that he held the second sacred gear, Zenith Tempest. As Cao Cao continued to fight, many people began to realize as well. His iron-fisted, hardline martial arts style was far too similar to that of the Eastern war god, Indra. There was definitely a connection between the two. The most terrifying one was the Red Dragon Emperor. A dragon species, one that was of an even higher class than the 5 great dragon kings. Just the 100 Chong body hovering above the underworld, and the holy power it radiated, was almost enough to completely purge all the restless souls in the underworld. Such power was fully on par with the heavenly dragons. These guys are the real monsters. Saraward Bale smashed a high-class Grim Reaper with a punch and looked up with a bitter smile at the figures constantly clashing in the sky. He spoke the thoughts that were on everyone's minds. Monsters, freaks. With completely off-the-charts monsters like the 4 great emperors emerging from the younger generation, whether it was the new generation of the underworld or the young powerhouses of other factions, they were all ruthlessly trampled underfoot. These people were like massive mountains pressing down on them, mountains they would never be able to scale in their entire lives. It was their tragedy, and also a goal they were destined never to catch up to or surpass. The rumbling explosions grew even more violent than before. The entire underworld was trembling, and huge cracks split open across the ground. Countless low-class magic beasts and devils scurried about in terror, completely clueless as to what was happening. The sky of the underworld was dyed in a chaotic mess of colors, patches of red, purple, and blue, all exploded out from the collision of the 4 great emperors and the god of the underworld's powers. Unfortunately, the capabilities of Hades, god of the underworld, were completely suppressed by the 4 great emperors. To put it bluntly, it was a one-sided beatdown. Before, the 4 great emperors had still been wary of the Dragon Eater Samael, not daring to fight with free rein, and could only rely on tacit cooperation to cover for each other with their sacred gears. Now, this big shot, famous throughout the 3 realms and ranked in the top 10 in the world, was beaten so badly he didn't even have a chance to strike back. His death energy. When it met Cao Cao's true Longinus and Luo Yu's holy power, it was like snow meeting boiling water, completely countered. Divide. Valley pulled this trick again. With a flash of the White Dragon Emperor's light wings, Hades's attack was directly cut in half. Dulio's attack smashed down immediately after. Countless bolts of lightning transformed into a long spear, with the aura of destruction rolling over it, shattering space as it thrust straight toward Hades. Death energy, get over here. Hades roared, and boundless death energy slapped out like a tsunami, swallowing Dulio's attack in just a few moments. Unfortunately, this wasn't a duel, it was a gang beatdown. How could Cao Cao's true Longinus miss such a golden opportunity? With a whoosh, the holy spear suddenly elongated. Hades had no time to dodge at all before he was pinned ruthlessly to the ground by this spear, feeling incredibly frustrated. God of the underworld, fall for me. The true Longinus suddenly erupted with blinding holy light, so bright that even the watching devil house heads couldn't keep their eyes open. It looked as if they really intended to kill Hades right here. Fuck the god of luck. Pinned to the ground, Hades howled in rage. The reason he suffered such a massive setback today was entirely because of these fool sacred gears left behind by the god of luck. Bang! Holy power bombarded downward continuously, and Hades's body instantly exploded into fragments. Rubble flew everywhere, and death energy permeated the entire area, shrouding the whole underworld. Is Hades, god of the underworld, dead just like that? Someone muttered in disbelief. Discerning people didn't even bother to respond to such words. If Hades died that easily, would he still be worthy of being called a top 10 powerhouse in the world? Was the ranking of the world's strongest a joke? That was a title won through genuine ability. Besides, couldn't they see that the 4 great emperors were still in their combat stances, with absolutely no intention of stopping? It was obvious that Hades, god of the underworld, would not die so easily. In a place like the underworld, trying to completely kill the god of the underworld was about as difficult as slaying a heavenly dragon that possessed its original dragon soul. Luo Yu merely moved her body slightly, and the terrifyingly extreme power spilled out, causing the entire sky to shake. To be precise, the space of the underworld simply could not withstand the existence of her body. The underworld had been rooted here since ancient times, and as the god of the underworld, Hades had naturally always guarded this place. Over the long years, the death energy accumulated within the underworld had become unimaginably dense, serving as Hades' endless source of power. At this moment, a massive amount of death energy welled up from the depths of the underworld, frantically pouring into Hades' body. He revived completely unscathed. Not only did all the scars on his skeletal frame vanish, but his state and power also restored to their peak. I am one with the entire underworld. Only by destroying the underworld can you make me fall completely. Otherwise. Before Hades could finish his grating words, Luo Yu blasted a breath of holy dragon fire right at him. Boom! A massive explosion erupted. The entire underworld shook violently several times in a row. Countless dark iron mountains of the underworld were instantly leveled, and even the temple that had already turned to ruins was completely vaporized. Saraorg Bale watched the area swallowed by the dragon breath with a face full of terror. Fortunately, he had fled quickly. If he had been caught in the aftermath of the Red Dragon Emperor's attack, even with the protection of the Regulus Nemea, he would have lost a layer of skin even if he didn't die. He wasn't the only one who was alarmed. The little lowly Lefay was filled with shock. This was the first time she had seen such a monster in the younger generation besides her brother and Valley. Gia. Red Dragon Emperor, I told you, everything you do is in vain. Amidst the holy dragon breath, Hades still let out his grating, mocking laughter. Is that so? Luo Yu descended. The sun god mirror fired countless chains first, instantly sealing Hades, god of the underworld. The dragon claw ignored spatial obstacles, grabbed Hades' skeletal frame, and squeezed hard. Bones splattered everywhere. On the surface, everything in the underworld was destroyed by the dragon breath. But death energy continued to gush out from the depths of the underworld, allowing Hades to resurrect once again. This proved one thing: the seemingly terrifying dragon breath Luo Yu just unleashed did not damage the foundation of the underworld at all. Red Dragon Emperor, just enjoy your moment of glory for now. Dragon Eater Samael will be out soon. If you don't retreat, you and White Dragon Emperor will both die here. Hades' smug face, as if he had already won, made the surrounding onlookers spit in disdain. How shameless. For a god of the underworld to act like this was practically rubbing the face of the gods into the dirt. A dignified ruler of the underworld actually had to rely on Dragon Eater Samael to bolster his courage, and he had the nerve to say the Red Dragon Emperor was only arrogant for a moment. If you, Hades, hadn't relied on the death energy accumulated in the underworld for tens of thousands of years as a backing, you would have already been hacked into meat paste by the four great emperors. Cursing behind his back was one thing, but the current situation was indeed tricky for the four great emperors. They could not kill Hades, and continuing to drag it out would only give Samael more time to break free from the seal. After all, the seal was only temporary. Once Samael truly broke free, the four great emperors would have to leave whether they wanted to or not. At this moment, far away on Mount Olympus, Zeus curled his lips into a meaningful smile. He completely ignored the two demon kings blocking his path. Next, they just needed to unite with other pantheons to put a bounty on these four guys. Especially this generation's Red Dragon Emperor, the threat was too great, and he had to be killed completely. By then, the forces behind them would definitely not dare to openly stop them. Otherwise, it would be disrupting the balance of the three realms and openly protecting these pests who were wreaking havoc in the three realms. It was just that the Red Dragon Emperor's strength was a bit troublesome, he needed to be calculated carefully. Odin sighed, his tone filled with regret. I thought these four brats could really poke a hole in the sky. Although he didn't care for the two dragon brats, the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor, he hated Hades even more. If these four brats could really chop up Hades, he would absolutely support it with both hands. Just as the old man finished speaking, Azazel took over the conversation. Old man, don't speak too soon, be careful about getting slapped in the face. Hey, brat, do you know what method they have to kill Hades? Odin became interested and looked at Azazel. White Dragon Emperor possesses the bloodline of the first generation Lucifer. I can see that his fighting style has quite a bit of your influence. He turned his head to look at Michael. That Thunder Emperor must have been trained by you, right? Michael was silent for a moment before speaking. Now that those brats have grown up, they don't tell their families everything. But I can be certain that with such a big commotion coming to hunt Hades, they won't end it empty-handed. Azazel's tone was firm. I don't dare speak for others, but the Red Dragon Emperor who led this operation must still have a trump card. Just as he finished speaking, as if to verify his words, the melody of a celestial hymn suddenly rang in Michael's ears. It was the battle song that only played when the Lord was still present. His pupils suddenly constricted, and his gaze was cast fiercely toward the location of the underworld deep within the underworld. This is, the Lord. This is too surprising. That brat actually hid such a move. Azazel and Odin were both stunned. Shiva, Zeus, Indra, there wasn't a single famous powerhouse in the three realms who wasn't shocked. Their gazes pierced through layers of space and landed straight in the depths of the underworld, thousands of words finally converging into a few characters. The strongest divine technique, eternal kingdom. You guys retreat first, leave the underworld. Luo Yu said in a deep voice to Cao Cao and the other two. Hey, Red Dragon Emperor, you. Before Dulio Gesualdo could finish his sentence, he was carried away by Cao Cao and Valley from the left and right. They knew very well that this guy was about to unleash a big move, and the range would definitely not be small. Staying here would only result in being caught in the crossfire. Only that blockhead Thunder Emperor hadn't reacted yet, opening his mouth wanting to say something. The two of them conveniently took away the other subordinates still remaining in the underworld. Haha, is this running away? Letting you, Red Dragon Emperor, cover the retreat. Hades laughed especially smugly. Seeing this scene, many onlookers thought the same as Hades. The four great emperors planned to retreat before Dragon Eater Samael came out. Otherwise, once the strongest Red Dragon Emperor and White Dragon Emperor fell here first, the Saint Emperor and the Thunder Emperor would also be finished. This battle, in the end, was won by the god of the underworld, Hades. Although the performance of the four great emperors did indeed amaze many people, this result, in the end, was still a bit disappointing. Running away. Luo Yu shook his head lightly and chuckled. Immediately after, his tone turned cold. The one who should be running is you, Hades. You should have run when you first attacked me. Ignorant and arrogant words. Hades couldn't be bothered to waste breath on him anymore and prepared to act first to trap the Red Dragon Emperor in the underworld, waiting for Dragon Eater Samael to come out before wiping him out in one go. Without the coordination of those three, in Hades' eyes, the Red Dragon Emperor was already a turtle in a jar. But Hades hadn't made a move yet. Luo Yu had already moved. The immense, extremely holy power within his body was drained completely in an instant. The luster on his dragon scales also dimmed visibly to the naked eye. At this moment, the ominous premonition in Hades' heart began to spread bit by bit. What kind of move was this? It could actually instantly empty the immense power of the Red Dragon Emperor, which far exceeded that of a super devil of the same level. Hades quickly mobilized tidal waves of death energy, ready to respond at any time. When Luo Yu shouted that name, Hades' expression changed instantly. His eyes were full of shock. He couldn't believe it at all. He couldn't believe he could hear this name again, which made him shudder from the bottom of his heart. Divine technique, eternal kingdom. Boom. A loud explosion. The sky of the underworld seemed to be torn open, cracking into a huge opening. An illusory world slowly emerged from the crack. In just a few seconds, it covered the entire original dark red sky of the underworld. 9 layers of illusory heavens, one stacked on top of another. That was a kingdom that would never rot or decay. There was not a trace of filth, and not a bit of sin could be found. It didn't need sunlight, it was forever bright and brilliant. Countless angels blew triumphant hymns inside. Divine beasts and holy beasts neighed loudly. Devout saints knelt to pray for blessings. Holy light spilled down, judging all evil. This kingdom was so beautiful that it didn't look like something from the mortal realm. Anyone who saw it would feel a yearning. But when this illusory eternal kingdom pressed down on their heads, that yearning instantly turned into bone-chilling fear. The demons of the underworld were all stunned. They swallowed their spit and stared up at the 9-layered heavenly kingdom in the sky, which looked like a mirage. That thing blocked out the entire sky of the underworld. Some demons were so scared they retreated several steps, fearing that the thing would really fall. But upon second thought, if that thing really fell, there was no use hiding anywhere. This is the strongest divine technique of that God, eternal kingdom. An old sect leader said, trembling. He had survived the Great War, his face filled with fear, anger, unwillingness. All kinds of emotions mixed together. He would never forget it in his lifetime. Before that God died, he used this move, Eternal Kingdom, to take out the first generation 4 great demon kings. He also wiped out a large batch of pure-blooded demons and high-ranking fallen angels. After that battle, the underworld didn't recover for a full 1,000 years. Many pure-blooded demon noble families were wiped out completely. Where did the Red Dragon Emperor get this move, Eternal Kingdom? The same answer popped into everyone's mind, the ancient battlefield. The place where that god fell. Legend says that the power of the god still remains there. This power refers not only to things like holy power, but more importantly, to the inheritance. An inheritance that even the celestial realm didn't have. But those who went there seeking death, whether demons or fallen angels, all failed. Angels were even less likely to desecrate the place where their lord fell. That brat Red Dragon Emperor actually inherited the mantle of the god-slaying god. This result was truly quite unexpected. Cao Cao and the others looked at each other, bitter smiles hanging on their faces. In this round, that guy had indeed taken the lead. The eternal kingdom of the god-slaying god. This brat Red Dragon Emperor really hid it deep. No wonder he wanted to start the war early. It turns out he was holding such a trump card. The eternal kingdom unleashed by the Red Dragon Emperor is far inferior to that of the god-slaying god. Back during the Great War, the god-slaying god's move was almost condensed into a physical form. Amidst the astonishment, some people also saw the flaws in the Red Dragon Emperor's move. But having said that, even with the gap, no one dared to underestimate its power. After all, it was a top-tier divine technique that could take out the first generation 4 great demon kings and a large number of pure-blooded demons and fallen angels cadres in one move. Everyone was guessing whether Hades could hold up this time. Eternal Kingdom. How could the Red Dragon Emperor know this move? Hades was already starting to panic inside. He had seen the true power of this move with his own eyes, it was simply not something he could resist head-on. Even if the power unleashed by the Red Dragon Emperor was far inferior to that of the god-slaying god, the oppressive feeling that made his soul tremble had already tightly gripped his mind. Come out, all of you. Hades roared up at the sky. In an instant, countless tornadoes formed by death energy exploded in the depths of the underworld, gushing out crazily and rapidly condensing into a giant death spear hundreds of feet high. The spear tip was pitch black, entwined with death intent, and even a super devil would feel a chill down their spine looking at it. Everyone understood. In order to block the Red Dragon Emperor's eternal kingdom, Hades had emptied the foundation of the underworld, and only then did he condense his strongest strike. What was the trump card of the underworld? It was the infinite death energy accumulated bit by bit since the ancient era. This was also the foundation for God of the underworld Hades to establish himself. Once this strike was thrown, regardless of whether Hades lived or died, other than his strength barely being able to maintain being slightly stronger than an average super devil, in other aspects, he would be no different from an ordinary super devil. With the death energy consumed, naturally, he would have no way to use death energy to resurrect again. Fall. Luo Yu couldn't be bothered to play any fancy tricks and directly smashed the eternal kingdom enveloping the sky of the underworld down onto the underworld. The eternal kingdom was simply too big, there was no way to accurately target an attack. It was better to just wipe out the underworld along with Hades, the lord of the underworld, in one go, it was less trouble. As the eternal kingdom drew ever closer to the underworld, it seemed as if it could completely wipe the entire underworld from existence at any second. Hum, hum hum. The spear of death trembled slightly, as if it had sensed a provocation, and immediately after, it tore through space after space, crashing violently toward the eternal kingdom. Boom. A piercing explosion erupted between heaven and earth. The spear of death pierced directly through the eternal kingdom, and the death energy coiled around the spear spread wildly. The pristine, holy brilliance was being stained black bit by bit, and the entire kingdom was sinking. Hades just wanted to heave a sigh of relief, thinking that the Red Dragon Emperor had run out of tricks. But just then, the eternal kingdom suddenly came to life. Illusory angels and saints appeared out of thin air, frantically resisting the erosion of the death energy. The ninth level of the eternal kingdom rose with a dazzling holy light, and the death energy that had accumulated over endless years, along with that spear, dissipated bit by bit within the light. No! Hades roared, his voice filled with unwillingness. This final strike, formed from the death energy that the underworld had accumulated for who knows how many years, had just been purified away like that. This was his last trump card. It is time for the curtain to fall, god of the underworld. Luo Yu's voice was cold, echoing in all directions. The eternal kingdom slammed fiercely onto the underworld. The entire underworld trembled. With the underworld as the center, the space within a 100-mile radius collapsed, forming a massive region of nothingness. That underworld, which had existed since ancient times, completely vanished under this single strike. The aura of Hades, god of the underworld, was also completely severed from the three realms. The surroundings were deathly silent. The three realms were silent. This was the second time in just one day that no one dared to make a sound. The first time was when the four great emperors revealed their strength. This time, it was the fall of Hades, god of the underworld. A complete fall, his aura had completely evaporated from the three realms. Many super devil repeatedly probed the underworld, and in the end, they had to admit that this powerhouse, ranked in the top 10 in the world, was truly dead. Dead at the hands of a young junior. It had been over 1,000 years since a super devil had fallen in the three realms. Many people looked toward the four great emperors, especially the Red Dragon Emperor, knowing full well that these fellows had truly become a major force. Hades was dead, and they had to understand that the old scores of those four guys stirring up trouble in the various pantheons should be turned over. Otherwise, if they held a grudge one day and it turned to their own turn, one only needed to look at the nothingness of the underworld to know the outcome. No one wanted to see such a miserable state within their own pantheon. Someone secretly glanced in the direction of Mount Olympus. Of the two super devil of the Greek pantheon, only one remained now. Mount Olympus was abnormally quiet, not at all like the style of Zeus. Was it the calm before the storm, or had the Greek pantheon chosen to swallow their pride? Albion sighed. Zeus stood on the peak of Mount Olympus, looking at the completely collapsed void of the underworld, and in the end, could only put his weapon away. Swallowing one's pride was not a shameful thing. If he failed to take revenge, and he, the only remaining super devil of the Greek pantheon, were to fall as well, that would be a true catastrophe. Without a super devil to hold the fort, the Greek pantheon would inevitably fall from a mainstream power to a second-rate level. He was the king of gods, a ruler, he had to consider the overall situation of the entire pantheon. Seers ex Lucifer and Ajuka Beelzebub looked at each other, turned around, left Olympus, and headed back to the underworld. On the side of the Norse pantheon, Michael and Azazel also left. That kid, the Red Dragon Emperor, has truly established himself. Some things must be let go. Odin ordered a Valkyrie to withdraw all the wanted notices for the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor from the Norse pantheon. He did not want to be targeted by those four fellows. He also understood that the four great emperors teaming up to ambush Hades was, to put it plainly, to establish their authority over the entire three realms. If they continued to hunt and suppress them everywhere. If they succeeded, it would be fine, once and for all. But if they failed, it wouldn't just be a matter of endless trouble. Just look at the current underworld, which was the most immediate outcome. The Hindu pantheon, other pantheons, all made decisions similar to the Norse pantheon. Putting a bounty on a Red Dragon Emperor who could hunt down a super devil at any time. Wasn't that just asking for trouble? It was best not to provoke the three of them, the Thunder Emperor, the White Dragon Emperor, and the Saint Emperor. Their own formidable strength was one thing, but what was more deadly was that the three of them had an extra layer of background compared to the Red Dragon Emperor. The heaven, the Grigori, as well as the underworld and the eastern Mount Sumeru. Above the ruins of the underworld that had completely disappeared, Luo Yu watched the spatial rifts beneath his feet slowly repairing themselves. The holy power in his body was almost bottomed out. Even the sacred juggernaut drive form was almost impossible to maintain and was about to automatically deactivate. Red Dragon Emperor, catch! Dulio Gesualdo threw a spatial channel toward him. A rich stream of light elemental water surged out of the channel, that was the water from the mirror lake of light. This spatial channel of Dulio Gesualdo's connected directly to the mirror lake of light on the seventh level of heaven. He was worthy of being an expert at playing with space. Ordinary people used spatial channels for nothing more than traveling and teleporting, but Dulio Gesualdo, on the other hand, had managed to come up with all sorts of tricks. Luo Yu did not stand on ceremony either. He opened his mouth and drank deeply, desperately restoring his holy power. Although Hades had fallen, with this deterrent in place, no one should dare to make a move against them at this time. But just in case, one's own strength was the most reliable. Luo Yu drank to his heart's content for a few minutes before restoring the holy power in his body to its peak state. After all, with the blessing of the boosted gear, the sacred juggernaut drive form had elevated him to the level of a super devil in every aspect. The underworld had become nothingness, with nothing left. Cao Cao and Valley walked to Luo Yu's side, their surprise not yet fully contained on their faces. Red Dragon Emperor, we have to leave quickly. If we drag this out, those gods will be coming over. They were indeed frightened. Luo Yu's eternal kingdom had wiped the entire underworld clean in one strike. This thing was too outrageous. Even a super devil might not be able to withstand this move. Luo Yu shook his head. We aren't leaving, wait a little longer. Wait a little longer. Cao Cao and Dulio Gesualdo looked at each other, their faces filled with confusion. Wait for what? Wait for the Dragon Eater Samael to come out. Once it comes out, aren't you dead meat? You did indeed take out Hades just now, and you even blew the underworld away. But that thing, Samael, is not a matter of whether you can beat it or not. It is the natural nemesis of the dragon race. Even the infinite dragon god Ophis can't do anything about it if she comes. Little red brat, you have already obtained the origin dragon soul, there is no need to risk your life again. From within the white dragon emperor's light wings, Albion spoke. It seemed to know what Luo Yu wanted to do. Yo, white one, you know how to care about people too. On the boosted gear, Ddrake's voice carried a tone of teasing. Red one, shut your mouth. I just don't want to watch my own people throw their lives away for nothing. Luo Yu was now the purest dragon species. Albion added another sentence. Kid, those things were originally just theories. No one knows if anyone has ever succeeded. You don't need to bet your life on it, it's not worth it. Wasn't it a theory from the very beginning? Luo Yu's tone was firm. As for whether it's worth it or not, I get to decide. He stared ahead, his voice turning cold. With a sword hanging over my head, I am not happy. Albion was silent for a few seconds and didn't speak again. Cao Cao and Dulio Gesualdo listened, completely confused. Valley, however, guessed a bit of it. It should have something to do with the dragon reincarnation that the Red Dragon Emperor had discussed with Albion earlier. Crack. The space ahead split open. Black miasma surged out from the rift. The Dragon Eater Samael, carrying the Dragon Slayer curse, crawled out from the abyss. Hiss, hiss, roar. Deep in the underworld, that seal which had been locked for who knows how many years finally shattered. The moment Samael broke free from its shackles, the entire sky changed color. A piercing roar tore through the air, sounding like metal scraping against bone, making one's scalp tingle. The black miasma spread in all directions like a living thing, and wherever it passed, even the ground began to rot. That kind of aura, the Dragon Slayer curse. The dragon species and magic beasts with dragon blood in the underworld, just hearing this roar, felt their legs start to tremble. It felt as if something was tightly gripping their souls, with fear seeping out from the cracks in their bones. In the distance, Tannen, who had originally been patrolling his territory, suddenly stopped his actions. This former Dragon King, now in a devil's body, still felt a flash of dread in his dragon eyes at this moment. He did not hesitate, turned around directly, and led the dragons behind him to retreat further away. Go. A single word, crisp and decisive. Tannen knew very well that before those gods could press Samael back into the seal, the further away from that thing, the better. Gods from various pantheons were arriving from all directions, and seeing that Samael had already broken the seal, their expressions were not very good. Everyone knew that if this thing were allowed to rush out of the underworld, the dragon species in the three realms would be finished. It had to be sealed back quickly. As for the four great emperors, the gods didn't expect those four guys to come and clean up the mess at all. They were better than anyone at causing trouble, doing real work. Don't even think about it. Moreover, weren't the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor both kept firmly in check by Samael? Just then, a figure suddenly moved. Wait, what is that guy, the Red Dragon Emperor, trying to do? The footsteps of the gods stopped in unison, their eyes all falling on that figure rushing toward Samael. Samael's appearance, just that black aura alone, caused the aura of Luo Yu and Valley to drop significantly. The power of the Dragon Slayer curse was too overbearing. For those like them who relied on dragon power to make a living, it was simply a natural enemy. But Cao Cao and Dulio Gesualdo were completely unaffected. Looking at the black mist in the distance, Dulio Gesualdo couldn't help but advise, Red Dragon Emperor, that thing is needed out of the hatred, anger, and malice of gods, it simply cannot be killed. Luo Yu didn't look back. I know. His tone was calm, but his gaze was locked tightly onto the black mist ahead. But sometimes, how do you know if you don't try? As soon as he finished speaking, the holy power in his body, which had only just been restored, began to burn frantically. In just a few breaths, it was bottomed out. Divine art, he raised his hand, his voice as cold as clashing ice cubes. Eternal Kingdom. 9 layers of the illusory Eternal Kingdom slowly emerged from the sky of the underworld, layer upon layer, brilliant with golden light, solemn and sacred, as if an extra kingdom had truly appeared in the sky. That holy aura pressed down, making the devils below feel uncomfortable all over, unable to stop themselves from frowning. The underworld was shrouded under the pressure of the eternal kingdom, and that holy aura was so oppressive that it made people unable to breathe. Countless sect masters cursed and swore. Wasn't Hades already dead and gone long ago? What is this guy, the Red Dragon Emperor, up to again? This is the underworld, not his backyard. Once Luo Yu made a move, Cao Cao and his group stopped making noise. That's the end of part 3. Part 4 is coming soon.
Thanks for watching my video. Please like and share it.